You get a lot of this when you're a beekeeper. People think you don't have one. This painting here is, I came up with some beekeeping rules, and there are 5 rules that I follow. Number 1, try not to crush the bees. When you crush the bees, they release a pheromone that excites the rest of the bees, and that's when the stinging starts. So you try not to crush them. 2, remember to wear socks. This is very important to beekeeping because anytime I've ever gone into the hive, when I'm not wearing my socks, that's where they sting. And being the kind of person who doesn't wear socks, I've learned to wear socks. 3, don't count on getting any honey the first year. It's a hard rule, but I didn't get any honey the first year. So that one's actually something that happened to me. 4, always be ready to capture a swarm. And you never are. It's when you're having lunch and you're thinking about your grocery list, or you're telling your daughter to knock it off, and you see this big pile of bees like floating off. And that means you got to stop what you're doing and see where they land, and you've got to get your materials together so you can collect them and put them in a bee box. But you should always be ready to capture a swarm. And number 5, remove the stinger. When you do get stung, you want to make sure you take the stinger out, because the longer it's in your skin, it's releasing venom. If you take it out right away, then chances are you won't have that much.
Tendency to swarm when their numbers are large enough, although I don't have any specific numbers, and also when they feel crowded. So that's kind of more of a determinant on the time of year.
Like when they're going to do it? Sense when they're getting ready?
Well, if you look inside the hive, they will be raising queen cells in a certain location in anticipation of the swarm. Okay. Swarming is how they increase their biological number. So their biological unit is one swarm or one hive. And so to increase those numbers, they have to send off the queen goes off with a large number of bees, and they start another colony. And so we have a saying that the bees haven't read the book. So you can read the book, it gives you some information, but there's nothing to compare from being out in the field.
That a bee had to fly 60,000 flights in order to create this spoon of honey that you're about to put in your mouth. That, depending on how far they fly, that's at least once, if not twice, around the entire earth. Can you imagine? That's what you're putting in your mouth.
And another thing I noticed looking at the bees out in the garden is that I love watching the bees gathering the pollen, the little pockets of pollen on their hind legs. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that there are so many different colors of pollen out there, with like chicory and I think the chicory is white, and like the holy basil is red, and it's just the pollen, it's so beautiful, and they take it back to the hives, and if you're lucky enough to see pollen stored in the frames, you can see a different array of like colors, and it's beautiful. And I'm lucky enough to have a bee land on my hand, and now I love it when bees land on me. Even if it's like yellow jacket or wasp, I don't care. I just like the feeling of it and like being able to look. But I really love when the honeybee lands, because she usually reminds me of a cat. She's kind of licking and preening, and usually always leaves behind a little bit of pollen on the hand. It's really beautiful to see up close. This like their tongues and the hair on their bodies, and the way that they do remind me of a cat. The way that they're kind of cleaning themselves.
The bees right now are at a time where they need people. Beyond the fact that they're being stressed out by people and that people are using too many chemicals on them, and using chemicals on the earth that are killing them. It is the small-time beekeepers and a lot of commercial beekeepers that are helping the bees right now across the country as we move more and more towards organic beekeeping.
Yes, it is.
That's adorable.
It is cute.
It's very
But it gets cuter, I get uglier. They do at night. You can see them on a nice hot night loping over the front and all up the front. And they hum in kind of a relaxing hum. Yeah. That's the chilling out, which they do every night.
I learned beekeeping from an old beekeeper, and I just love being mentored by him because he was one of those people who knew the thinking of the bees, and he sort of imparted it in me, you know, to put yourself into the mind of the bees. And many times beekeepers do this and that, and now we have to requeen, and every year we have to do this and that, and I'm saying, let the bees handle it, you know, just leave them be.
Each day is a job, and you can compare the day in the life of a bee to the year in the life of a human. Okay, so year 1 to 3, day 1 to 3 for a bee would be you're little and you kind of like watching mommy in the house do the housework. You can kind of help out a little bit, like maybe pour some orange juice. All right, so these worker bees have small jobs, little cleanup jobs. From day 5 to 7 or 8, they're actually in charge, like a young child, of babysitting or feeding the young ones. All right, so they get to feed bees. That's nurse bees. Then when they get to be like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 days old, they become important wax builders. Now they have to make like additions in comb. And then when they get to be 18, 19, 20, 22 days old, they're army bees. They go into service, they guard the entrance, and they watch the older bees flying, so they don't have muscles. They practice, they make little flights in and out, and they guard, and they kick all the intruders out. That's why we keep over in the front here. There's an opening, because we don't want to be walking around the hive and have 4 corners guarded. You only guard the front. That's the only place you don't stand as a beekeeper. Now, from 22 days old to the end of their life, which is between 48 and 60 days old in the summer, 4 months in the winter, so hard work doesn't pay off, everybody. But the summer bee lives for about 2 months, and the last 4 weeks of its life, it actually flies its wings off, going back and forth up to 3 to 5 miles looking for groceries. I call it grocery shopping. I call it getting your license, going out and working for the family. It's a worker bee.
A beehive that's kept as a family member will mourn the loss of a family member, or the story is traveling to the church, to the cemetery, and making a pass through as the old-time beekeeper is buried. And you know, I think more people are bringing that heart back, those stories back, to bring the heart back into beekeeping.